everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation show. I am your host, Rebecca Boswell, and today we are going to, as usual, look at how choice creates, and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you, whatever that is. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Cordelia Gaffar. She is a holistic coach, and she's going to be joining us today as we explore the topic of how sweet talk can reframe your life. So Cordelia, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know you have a lot of things on your plate as a public speaker, as a coach, mom to 6 children. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca. This is a great pleasure.
So Cordelia, when did you begin working with clients in this capacity? I get that you work a lot with women, and working in this capacity of really helping to tease out what is possible that maybe they hadn't considered yet, that they hadn't seen yet, and at what point did you start to notice that sweet talk could make a difference in how things are showing up and what was showing up?
That's a great question. Because when I started in 2015, I thought that I helped women to lose weight. And one particular client actually opened my eyes to the fact that I do so much more than that. I gave her a meal plan and, exercise program. 4 months in, she's like, I don't exercise. I don't like it. And I said, okay, let's explore that. And what I found out was it was just reframing what she considered exercise. And I said, well, do you ever walk? And she said, oh, I love walking. I walk for miles. I'm like, okay. Do you know that that's really the best form of exercise? And she's like, oh, it is? And I said, yes, right? Because I guess we consider that transportation.
Yeah.
So, right. So anyway, when we finally finished working together, she did lose weight, but the weight that she really lost was her tongue, right? The weight of the words that she chose. And that's when I, going into my second year, changed what my message was. And I said, I help women to nourish with wholesome food, energize with movement, and reframe their perspective with sweet talk.
Yes, cool. So I know one of the programs that you have created and play with is about the body soul shift. And so let's back up here a little bit, because it sounds like being a holistic coach and all, it sounds like there really is an invitation and a space to become more in communion with the body. And to begin asking more questions instead of just deciding what should be applied to the body from an outside source, but rather, what do we know already, and what can we begin choosing that we had not yet considered, right? So many times our considerations can actually become a limitation. So this body soul shift. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know it's a five-day experience. So when you're taking people, inviting people really, on this journey, what is it that begins to show up there, and what is the actual invitation from your point of view?
Right. So the body soul shift is actually I have various 5-day experiences, so they get a taste of like my longer 5-week programs. Okay. So in the 5-day experience, we go through the 5 steps. The first one is dropping into your body and heart. And the second one is acknowledgement of your emotions. And then the third one, of course, is sweet talk. Step 4 is radiate, and step 5 is the actual flow. So each day when we first drop into our body, we are actually moving and looking for where our emotions live in our body. Sometimes we have that kink in our neck that won't go away, or we have that that thing in our stomach, or that weird ankle, right? And these are actual energy centers where our emotions will live. And so we send love to those parts. And, so often, like I talked to a woman yesterday and she was like, that thing we did with our shoulders, I like actually released it. And I was able to express myself, right? Because the next day is acknowledging your emotions. So once you know where they live and why they're there, then just connecting with your emotions and letting that wisdom come out of your body, right? And then the language that you speak is different, and it emerges from your heart. That's the sweet talk. And then you begin to exude what you really want, and the things that you want, you radiate out, and it just comes back to you. And you go into flow and step into your ultimate purpose. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I get that, so often, it seems that we look outside of ourselves for an answer, for a solution, for, sometimes something to save us. And yet when we do begin to acknowledge, the profound and infinite capacities and even knowing of our bodies, and begin to, to actually be in communion with them, instead of trying to be in control over them, or to, literally muscle them into doing what we think we'd like them to be and do. It definitely creates a very different experience. Now, when people are coming to they're choosing this experience, do you find that people are usually at a certain place in their lives, or is there something in particular? Are there things kind of going wrong, or are things great and they just are wondering how they can become even more exponentially amazing? Or, have you noticed any sort of trends of who's showing up and what they're asking for when they come?
It's interesting. Lately, I've been getting a lot of coaches that help people to self-actualize. Like one coach, she helps women that have been diagnosed with cancer to help the cancer go away.
Mm.
And another woman, she helps women deal with grief, right? She's a widow herself. So it seems to be the women that are really serving in a huge capacity to big, large communities that seem to be drawn to what I offer. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I have had women that have been corporate that are just kind of sick and tired of oh my God, if that back pain will not go away, I just don't get it. What's happening? But for the most part, it's really these, they're healers, right?
Yeah.
Themselves. But they need to shift something within. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, like they always say in the airplane, right? Affix your air mask first so that you can be of greater assistance to others.
Yeah.
And that sense too, that there, when there is the awareness of what different energies, forces, belief systems can be at play, a psychologist, or well, I guess we'd say even a surgeon, is not the best candidate to do their own surgery. So I get it. I get it. And so what are some things then, that you're also a coach. So, short of going into your own program, what are some of the inside tips, or what are some of the things that you do or you choose on a daily basis to really be able to maintain this space for people to come and experience that shift?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great question. And I've had to shift that recently myself. So I just keep it simple. I choose my vibration and I say, today I'm going to step into, and it's kind of whatever's missing, for myself, because clearly I do my own body soul shift every day. I'm like, where are we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this week it's been gratitude and joy, and which are the higher vibrations, right? To choose, and it just helps me to keep myself in a heart space
Mm.
where I can, because I'm an empath, where I can give, but at the same time, I can hold space for myself.
Yeah. So can you speak to that a little bit? So for anybody watching who either is not entirely familiar with, when we refer to an empath, isn't exactly sure or has a bit of a sense, but isn't sure if they are one. um, can you just talk a little bit about that and how someone might recognize if that's something that is also, you know, dynamic in their lives?
Yeah. So being an empath, you're usually more sensitive to other people's feelings. So dealing with clients in a healing space in the beginning actually was really heavy for me.
Mm,
And like now I can do groups, but before it was like one client and we could only meet once a week and it could only be 40 minutes,
yeah.
because that energy exchange was so much. I would like really feel into them
Yeah.
and take on their actual emotions in my body in order to help them. And that is another important reason why women need a body soul shift, because we don't even realize, we know that we're caregivers or caretakers, but what's happening for a lot of us is that our heart space is so open that we get overwhelmed and we actually shoulder other people's emotions and we don't even know what's happening. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I recognize a lot. One of the tools that I use very often, I mean, several times during the day, is just the sense of getting the sense of my space and expanding out as far and as wide as I possibly can. And I mean, like out, out in, how far into what multiverses can I reach? And really, getting that sense of, wait a minute, when I look at, okay, how can I, change this in someone else's reality, or how can I, you know, keep it all in this small little little conglomeration of molecules in like this infinite expanse. It's not always my best choice in terms of ease with my body, ease with, my brain starts to take over, thinks it has total control, and that can definitely contract into a very heavy space. um, Whereas when I'm able to expand out and well, first of all, remember remember that this is not it. Like, there's actually, this is just the, the picture on the box, but this is not actually like all of it. It's, or the picture on the brochure, right? um it's not the actual space. So being able to go back into that and out, um of that smaller limited space. um so it sounds kind of like a similar thing that, when you're talking about the heart space, is kind of tapping into that infinite energy and tapping into, um, everything that's greater than the to-do list, everyone else's problems, the weight of, the world, and, everything that's going wrong, and, all those things that we can spiral out about. Um, do you have any, like, is there like a tool just in this 10 seconds, that is maybe on the top of your list for people who are looking to kind of get out of that contraction, open that heart space, drop into the body, as you say, but in sort of a practical way? Like, what are some ways that people can do that and expand and find that space when they're not perceiving it? But they know, oh wait, it's out there somewhere, I could choose something. What could they choose?
I like to call it the sanctuary. So the sanctuary is really kind of like that heart space where it's based in quality time. You pick one thing that is something that you miss doing.
Mm.
Okay. So someone recently told me they miss coloring. Like, like that's so brilliant. I think it's great. And you just do that for like 5 minutes and you hold on to the feeling, like just be completely present in that thing. And you hold on to that feeling. And anytime the stress or something overwhelming is happening in your world, you just step back and you tell yourself, I'm going to go into my sanctuary. And it doesn't even have to, it's like so simple. I just do like this. I'll just press on my temple and I'll be like, that is such a really good feeling, and just be there in
Yeah.
sanctuary for, however long, and then I can get back into it. I mean, I do this when I have 5 kids home now. My oldest one is gone, but when they are all fighting and they're like, Mom, blah, 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 blah. And my husband's texting me at the same time, because it all happens at the same time. And I'll be like, okay, pause. And they may still make noise or not, but I'm in my sanctuary. And this is what I use to insulate my energy, right? Because remember, I was telling you before, that energy exchange with my clients, clearly it happens a lot more permeable, like with your kids, right?
Yeah.
You can't really control that. But it helps me to shut off so that I can do the deep listening
Mm.
and really see from a logical perspective where everyone is.
Mm.
And then my wisdom can shine through, as opposed to being reactive and coming from well, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. And, is that fair? And, it's a very logical flow.
Yeah. It's funny. And because when I look at it, I'm like, how logical is it? Because you're actually going beyond logic. From my point of view, you're going beyond logic to where, it's like sometimes we can get trapped in the logic of like, I have to be a good mom. So therefore A, B, C, D, and E, and I have to stay calm because I'm a coach and, da, 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 da. And, I have to respond to this text. And, of course, every text has like 10 like different arms going in different directions that all require something in order to respond. Right. So it's like, that's what, like, for me, when I look at it, it's like, I just see the computers with all like the numbers going and going. And that's the brain just like crunching away, trying so hard to like get it all. And then when you talked about just kind of, I almost perceive it not even so much as shutting off as much as just not being the effect of it anymore. So it's all going on, and that's okay because it no longer has you hooked. And then when you're dropping to that other space, that is where, like, for me, what I perceive when I'm doing this is like, that's where I'm actually able to connect and be like hooked into the total greatness of like every possibility. And so it's like, yes, the mayhem and the frenetic energy and the blah, 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 it's all possible. It's all a choice in that moment. And suddenly it's like, oh, and I'm also aware again of all of these other choices, these other possibilities, these other ways of being that I still have access to. I just forgot for a second. And yeah, and so really getting to drop into that, or really, I mean, we can say drop into it. My sense of it is actually more of a expanding out, but it's all, whether you drop in or you expand out, it's all infinite. So regardless of which direction your brain thinks it needs to go, doesn't really matter. It's all the same.
Yes.
so with so let's talk about this, because I'm 6 kids. Right, we're talking about expanding out, dropping in, finding our sanctuary. And you're speaking, you're meeting with clients, now you're able to handle a much, your space of being, you're able to have that, that sense of what's going on with people, and also have your sanctuary. So now you know, between seeing clients and, you know, speaking at events, how does this work with six kids? Can you tell us a little bit about keeping all those balls in the air?
Yeah. Recently, I've actually started to call it plate spinning, right? Because I kind of
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, I homeschool. That's the cool thing, because that allows everybody to be on their own body clock.
Yeah.
And that makes it simpler for my scheduling, right? And I work with people usually in the UK and Australia, so they're on opposite ends of my day, which
Oh,
leaves
great.
the middle of the day for me to be with my kids. So there's some very important parts of the day that we, you know, meet. So I have breakfast with my kids, right? And the early risers get to cook breakfast with me. And then I have lunch with my kids, and I don't allow anyone to cook lunch with me because it's very important. Cooking is my sanctuary. I love to cook.
Mm.
And the spices and everything, you know, they kind of speak to me, and, you know, whatever I need to nourish bodies that day, you know, that's my space. So it's kind of like a self-care, you know, embedded and mealtime kind of thing. And then afternoon, they know, is really just for me, you know. That's usually when I have my client appointments and everything. And usually they're done with their work, you know. And my older kids, I mean, they've been homeschooling for years, so I just kind of check their stuff at the end of the day. And then when my husband comes home, if it's not a soccer practice day,
Yeah.
he takes over and I shut it down, because I go to bed early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so when I have to travel, though, I usually, like, I have a community of people
Hmm.
that help out. So yeah.
So it's really cool. So what I hear you really showing us is that you have really created something that's going to work for you and for your kids, even if it doesn't look the normal way or the way everybody else does it. And you've also created a space where you all are able to come together, where you're all able to have this shared experience of the food, of preparing it in the morning, of also your children seeing you value your sanctuary, and have this experience with the cooking of the afternoon meal, being available to them for whatever it is that they may require, and also having a sense of what what you're creating, and the sense of I also I also get to choose for me as well. Has it always been that clear and easy for you?
I have a visitor.
Oh, great. Oh, perfect. Right on cue. Hello. How are you?
No.
I'm doing good.
Excellent. So we were just talking about you and your siblings.
It hasn't, no. In the beginning with my oldest two, I was a monster mom.
Yeah.
And so I've found my way, this is where some of the emotional intelligence piece came from, because I wanted to be a better role model and not like do the whole, right? And so I studied emotional intelligence for myself and for my kids and for their learning styles. And that's kind of where some of it came from. I studied like the whole brain child,
Yes.
Naomi Aldort, and
I was going to make a note about. I just want to write this because I'll put it in the notes for anybody who wants to check those resources out. Naomi, what is her last name again?
Aldort.
Arlene.
No, she's not your name.
Arlene.
And it was the whole.
That's not the name of her book. The
Oh,
Whole
oh, oh.
Child is a different book. So Naomi Aldort, she talks about her son is like I want to say he plays the violin, but he travels all over the world. And so he has this heart-centered way of parenting. And so I've read, what is it called? Raising Your Inner Child. Basically, you know, whatever it is that you suffered in childhood, when when you're in that same space in your parenting, you'll start doing automatically what your parents did.
Yeah.
And came up with a system to really re-examine that and re-raise yourself the way you would have liked to be raised, and in that way raising your child differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's so amazing. Our actually the our show next week is on a similar bent to this that we're talking about right now, falling together with family and you know, it really is so interesting where we learn, you know, we take on so much from our environment. I mean, that's how this physical being has you know, has been wired to work. And so we, you know, we take on what our parents say and do, and the people who influence us at school and in our community, and then all of a sudden we have children, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there's no manual, so I'm just going to automatically do what I saw done, even if some of those behaviors, those patterns, created precisely those things that we're working on now as adults to begin to shift and change. And yeah, that momentum, or that, you know, the pathways can be so strong. And yet, when we acknowledge it first, you were talking about acknowledging before, and, you know, just acknowledge first, one, that there's something that we would like to change, and then two, begin to acknowledge what it is. Then three, we just basically have the choice of whether we want to really commit to that or not. Is, you know, is it working? Is it not working? So as you were kind of repatterning yourself, is that how this whole process of coming into coaching came about? Or what you know, what sort of prompted you on your personal path to go from monster mama to holistic coach, and you know, being with more space?
Right. I actually, you know, I was an accountant, right? And then I had a couple of kids, and, you know, I was in a space where I had really reached that glass ceiling. So I was a controller, and I reported to a CFO who was never around.
Can you talk to her now?
Not yet, hold on. And so I, you know, I was working with lots of men and not getting recognition. And I realized, do I, you know, I already had the 2 children, and then I fell pregnant with the 3rd one. I was like, do I really want to put up with this? Or do I want to be present for my children? And so I decided to stay home with my kids and homeschool.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was frustrated. Clearly, that's where the monster mom piece came from, because it's like, I went to school for this, and, you know, I should be fighting for my right, you know, da 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 da. And then I was like, no, I chose to be present with my kids, because this is the next generation, and this is what's important in the world, right? We have a bunch of monsters out there that the men that I was working with, they're that way, you know, for a reason. You know, they were missing something in their childhood. I have no opinions about anybody's parenting, but they're missing something. And I don't want my children to be missing something. And so in that self-development that is parenting, you know, that was my parenting journey. I just kept trying and trying so that I could create an environment, a peaceful environment to the best of my ability,
Yeah.
a learning environment, because people learn better when they're loved and they're in
Yes.
a place of compassion, right? And just being grateful for being able to do that, because, you know, let's face it, it's expensive to raise children, you know, or it can be, it depends
Can be. Yeah.
on how you know, like, yeah, that's a whole different conversation. We'll talk about abundance some other time, but you know,
Right.
so and I just found over the years, you know, at different places you meet other moms, you're like, oh, how do you do this, how do you do that? And then I tell them, oh, they're like, wow, that's a lot, write that down. And that's how I ended up blogging and making that into a book. And then I decided, after I, you know, released my book, let me do some workshops. And then I started doing workshops, and I realized how that energy, you know, it was really hard for me. And then, but I said, I want to speak more. And I was like, wow, I really need some help with my presenting. But now, you know, I've gotten to a place where I'm on stages around the world, you know, speaking to people and sharing my message. And it's something that I want women to understand. You can do it, you know, and you don't have to choose. It's a matter of really understanding what is your ultimate purpose. And then you'll get into that flow, and all the things you want to do will happen. You know, just like a month ago, I was in, I traveled like for 3 weeks in a row. And then last week I traveled with my family, and my kids, they're, you know, are you still happy?
Mhm.
Yeah. And they still love me. And, you know, so you can go and have your 5 weeks vacation by yourself, you know, obviously not all at once. And then you can, you know, just still be the mom you want to be. So
Yeah. Now, so allowing that to, you know, if so from where I sit, you know, our choices create. So everything that we choose is going to create something, right? And if it creates something that works, then, oh, okay, well, perhaps I'd like to choose it again. Or what else can I choose that would also work, or maybe even work even better? And if something's not working, okay, cool, that didn't work, and I don't have to go down into a pit of despair judging it. I can simply choose again. Now, lots of times our choices and what we allow ourselves to choose, and sometimes what we're even able to perceive as a choice around us, can be colored by the things from our upbringing, you know, those initial learnings and, you know, hurts and wounds that you were talking about before. You know, so kind of choosing as an adult from the space of the inner child who may have not had the tools and resources required at the time, when these thoughts, beliefs, emotions were kind of created as real. So that all influences our self-talk. It influences the words we use with ourselves, with others. So now as we begin to look at sweet talking ourselves, where are some places that we can begin to start repatterning, to start reframing, even if it doesn't seem obvious how to do that, and to get started?
yeah, there's some really basic words that I start out with. I'm building a dictionary, actually, of sweet talk.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So one word I just kind of talked about was,
Can I talk to her?
I'm going to give you a chance in a second, okay? Thank you. She got some new toys she wants to tell us about.
Oh, very cool.
But wait a minute. Wait. Okay, you can look at them. So a lot of times that time alone away from our families, we call it me time. I prefer to use the word quality time, because quality time is something it has a proper space and scheduling for it, and we take it seriously. Whereas even like if I say the words, if I say the phrase me time, I feel very reactive and resentful, you know, kind of like I have to snatch something away. But
oh yeah, like there's no time for me unless I take this. And
yes,
so you're sort of reinforcing this sense that there isn't enough, and that you're actually not valued enough in all of your time. So you have to carve out this one little space
and
to try to get it.
it's a
Yeah.
scarcity thing. It feels so small. It feels like,
Yeah.
oh, I can just get this hour of me time. But when I say quality time, it's like, okay, well, should that be a day? Should that be a couple of weeks? You know what I mean? It has a whole different opening in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
One word I used earlier, sanctuary, right? So that is really, like when you think of a sanctuary, you think of like a nice, peaceful place. And why not make that place right there in your heart? You know, like I said, when you're having, you know, you're being frazzled, you're having stressful times, I need to go into my sanctuary, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, the people that you interact with, your family, they'll get to know what that means. And, you know, sometimes my older kids will be like, are we stressing you out? You know, like they know what
Yeah.
that means. So I guess those are some of the basic words that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, a very common word I feel that we misuse is no. No is the best form of sweet talk. It's the highest level of sweet talk you can ever use, right? Because we always say yes. And it's like, but why did I just say yes? I totally wanted to say no. So it's a word that we already use, but we could use it a lot better. So, you know, just say what you mean. When someone asks you something, ask of your time, ask of your emotions, just say no.
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, so really checking in with what is going on with you, where you are, you know, in that moment, and acknowledging. I mean, I hear again, there's a lot of acknowledgement that you're asking for here, to acknowledge, is this something, you know, is this something that I'm interested in? Is this something that could create greater? Is this something that would be a contribution to myself or to those I care about? Or is it getting, you know, is it coming from a place of obligation, or from, you know, decisions made or fears that you have? Or, you know, what is the energy actually that's feeding your response? Are you reacting with a yes because you've decided all these things about, you know, what you have to do and be? Or, you know, is it a yes as something that's actually going to feed you and fulfill you and create greater for everybody that's involved? So yeah, so no, saying no to those things that actually don't work for you, right? Like that's also a choice. Yes, no, maybe, and then all of the infinite possibilities in between those that aren't as clear sometimes. Um, you know, with mantras, I know sometimes they can be very they can be useful in terms of just reminding ourselves back to a space or an energy, or not back to it as much as just recalling that it's there and that we have access to it. Um, I know sometimes mantras can be, you know, the saying, fake it till you make it, but sometimes I've experienced where mantras are used together with judgment, and they can actually be pretty vicious, right? If every time you say, you know, I am abundant, and you're really just strengthening the pathway of lack and frustration and anger and fear and all those things that, you know, you're just resisting and reacting to. And on the other hand, you know, there are ways to use words. You know, words are just signposts to, you know, things that are intangible, oftentimes. And so, you were saying before, going to a space like with coloring or something that's enjoyment, going to that space, sensing the energy of that space, really being with all of your cells and molecules and everything, just really being in that space, getting what that is so that you can actually recall that and go to it at different times and in your day and wherever you are. And so I get with mantras, we can also use them that way as well. They can also be a tool, a weapon or a tool, like anything. So if we are using it in this sense of like, okay, I'm really gonna, I'm really going to ask these words to contribute to me, and for me to, you talked about vibration, for me to actually come and meet these words where they are, as opposed to trying to get the words to come down and meet you down here in the so if you are going to use some words or maybe let's say a mantra to begin building this muscle for sweet talk, to begin getting in a habit or a pattern or just being more comfortable, I guess, with creating greater for yourself. If you're used to being in a pattern of constantly self-sabotaging or pulling yourself down or berating yourself, what are some that you have used or that you like to use or that you share with your clients?
Yeah, I have some really simple ones. I have like a happy bubble meditation, but it's, I guess one that comes really clearly to mind is peace in me, peace in you, peace in all that we do, peace
Yeah.
in food, peace in my food, peace in all that is good. And while I am inculcating an environment of peace, I'm emanating compassion beyond release. Be the peace. So this is, so very easy and flowing, and it feels good, right? So I don't know if it's like a poem that came to me one day when I was really just like overwhelmed. There's not any other way to put it. I was just like beyond. And I said, you know what? My reality is at this moment. And in this moment, I'm just laying on my back in my bed. What's happening really is whatever it is that's in my mind. So what will I choose to think right now? What will I choose to feel right now? And what words am I going to tell myself? And so with my mind empty, when I realized that my reality is not any of those things that I was feeding my mind, I was like, wait, none of those things are happening right now. They're not.
Right.
It's not real.
No, I'm just creating feeling terrible, but that's my creation. There's actually nothing else here.
And so if I had to choose, what would I choose?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the words that came to me. And of course, peace is one of the higher vibrations, right?
Yeah.
And when you have the vibration of peace, I think they've actually measured it. They put like a Tibetan monk in a village, and the crime rate went down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you want to choose a vibration, well, there it is. And you truly can emanate that. So that would be, I don't think that's too hard to try, because it really worked for me when I was quite low.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we'll do if you're watching this and thinking, oh, wait, I have to go back, we will put that poem in the show notes so that you can look at that, maybe write it down somewhere, maybe keep it next to your bed or in your pocketbook or, on the refrigerator in the kitchen. And yeah, that's something you can play with and see what it can shift and change for you. I find sometimes it's like, oh, I'd like to sweet talk myself. And then life happens, it doesn't really happen, but we think it happens, but we're choosing, we're creating, and we forget that we actually have, a lot to do most all of everything to do with what's showing up. And so sometimes just having a little something that you can start with, yeah, it can be fun. And then, yeah, how much can you begin to start to see which words pop for you, which what you're able to sense, what you're able to perceive, what's fun. And the biggest thing is, noticing when one of the big things that I notice a lot is when there's an I can't. It's like, oh, okay, really interesting. How many points of view do I actually require to be able to lock that into place? How many things about me that I am capable of do I actually have to shut down and turn off in order to make that true? And so it's like, oh, okay, interesting. So everything that is, bye-bye. And what can I do, right? And there may be a situation where it's like, well, right now I really, I don't see anything else, and I can't. And it's like, okay, so right, maybe I can't do what I think I want to do right now. And what can I do oftentimes can lead to something different, to where the can't suddenly is either irrelevant or not as daunting as it was before. So as we start to wrap up, Cordelia, what else, is there anything else that you would like to share with us on this topic of how we can use sweet talk to reframe our life and to start creating something different if what's showing up is actually not what we're enjoying?
Yeah, it's really going back to reframing your perspective. So even if you're, just like I said, not in your bed, if I were to go back to my corporate job, right? And instead of feeding into the negativity and that mind space of, I'm a woman and I've reached my glass ceiling, reframing my perspective and saying, I'm in a position where I am doing a great service to this organization.
Yeah.
And I have an opportunity really to make systems better.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, I'm choosing to stay in the office, and I'm choosing to be here, and just really approaching everything from a place of deep listening and deep understanding, so that my expertise, can come out instead of shutting it off, right? Like a lot of times, I know for myself, when I was in that corporate arena, I actually could not function in my job sometimes, because I was so trapped in that I want to do this, but they're not going to accept it, because the last time I proposed something, right, it was shot down, or it was actually laughed at.
Yeah.
But just keep going, because the higher your vibration is, the times that I actually let myself shine, they couldn't laugh. I could see the smirk coming on their face, but they were like, wow, we should really use that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the importance of reframing your life with the sweet talk, because it's not about what people are projecting at you. It's about what you allow in, what you're accepting. And if you don't accept it, and you're the one, that's like that Buddhist monk that's, emanating, radiating all that you are, then you're in the position of power, and people can't help but accept it.
Yeah. And, like when Einstein talks about, if you measure a fish on its ability to climb a tree, right, you're kind of missing out on the fish. And so it's like, when we look at, okay, I have to fit myself in this box. And in your case, it was that job, making use of what you studied, you know, whatever you had decided about who you had to be in the world. And it's like, you know, that ceiling, it's like we decide, oh, now there's a ceiling, it's a limitation. And how much of it is actually just awareness that we're not really in a space that is our genius and is you know, where we ultimately would like to be, and where our capacities are. I mean, yes, maybe you were in a zone of excellence, you know, maybe you did a great job, but was it actually, you know, was it actually what is required of you in this lifetime? And so, yeah. And so being able to, instead of saying, oh, well, I was in this and it didn't work and I couldn't, and it was hard and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh my goodness, what a gift. What a gift that I suddenly could realize and acknowledge that it wasn't working for me, and actually was the gift, you know, and the platform for creating what was next. And you know, and was required in order to be able to move through those repatternings and things from your childhood that we talked about before, right? So it's like, you know, it's such a temptation to think that, you know, what we did before was somehow wrong, or oh, these limitations. And it's like, actually, wow, how awesome that we got to have all these experiences, and look what we created, and look at what magnificent creators we are, so capable of creating that, and creating whatever we're creating now, and also creating whatever we'd like to create as our future. So being able to then, like, there's such a different energy of like, wow, like really there's anything possible. And so if everything and anything is possible, what would I really like to choose? And then playing with, oh, nope, that doesn't work. Oh, yep, that works. Oh, that didn't work, but it works now, right? Because things are always ever changing, ever evolving. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Cordelia. It's really been a pleasure to speak with you today, and to tap into some of these things that you've been playing with. And is there anything else in terms of how people can find you, what you're currently playing with and offering, and what would you like people to know if they would like to come and play with you more?
Oh, yes. I would invite them to take the Body Soul Shift quiz.
Okay, yes.
And that is just, you can go to www.bodysoulshift.com, and it's just an assessment. You know, it's like, you don't have to think really hard about it. Just how are you paying attention to what your body and your heart deserve? And it's kind of a neat way to better understand yourself. And for everything else that I'm up to, they can go to my website, which is workoutaroundmyday.com.
Yes.
And
Excellent.
that's it.
Excellent, excellent. And I believe we posted that link for the quiz, if I'm not mistaken, on Tuesday of this week or Wednesday. Either way, we will also put the link in the show notes as well, in case you missed it this week. So those links will be available for you, and you'll be able to find Cordelia and try and catch up with her as she is gallivanting across the globe, assisting women with self-actualization, forgiveness, and finding and creating the sanctuary that is possible for all of us when we're willing to choose it and receive it and be it. So thank you, Cordelia, for being here. Thank you to your daughter for contributing her energy to the episode. We appreciate it, and for her willingness to be patient. And for all of you at home, thank you so much for watching. We really enjoy having you here with us now and in the future. If you have any questions, comments for us, please feel free to get a hold of us. Let us know what else you'd like to learn more about, hear more about, discover and explore more. So happy choosing, I wonder what all you will incorporate into your everyday over the next week, and we will see you next Friday for another amazing episode. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. Please like the Art of Creation Show on Facebook, and I wonder what we'll discover next. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.